You're sitting on the fence there, Josh. People wanting it. I've gone full hog there, and you're sitting on your lovely big chair, not giving the people a proper. What do you think? If I was to pin you to that wall right now, who wins?
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV, and this is a big video. It is the Dublin Racing Festival anti-post preview. We're going to look ahead to all of the races at the two-day meeting. It's a brilliant meeting, and it chucks out an awful lot of Cheltenham Festival winners. Yeah, it often does. It's a fantastic few days of action. It's a great buzz around Leopardstown. It's probably one of the best 2 days of action throughout the entirety of the calendar year, really, when you look at the Grade 1 action, and the rest of the card is full of big field handicaps and Grade 2 bumpers. You can't get too much better than that. I'd maybe make the case that I prefer it to Cheltenham. Now you're getting a little bit jumpy and ahead of yourself. I know you've said that before. You've at one stage as far as everything's concerned, like night out, Dublin, racing, the ease of getting to the track. It's so good. Yeah, there is a good element to that, and I suppose the night out in Dublin is, well, I think it's a relatively standard night out. I keep taking you on out in Dublin, but you keep saying it's the best thing since sliced bread, and maybe it is, considering we've had this terrible news about 21 Club in Cheltenham. We're going to have to really reassess our options come March. Yeah, that was horrible news, and we hope all affected by that make a swift recovery. It's been a tough one to take here at Let's Talk Racing. But we are going to go through all of the races. Beforehand, we're going to touch on 5 performances. And before we do that, we are going to say, please do hit that like button. Thank you so much for all the support. It all massively helps the channel grow, and that's what we want it to be. We want it to grow as big as we can. I think we've hit 600 likes the last 3 videos, so we're going to go one more. I think that's what we need to do. We were just watching Fulham Spurs there. Harry Kane levelling with Jimmy Greaves. The 700 likes barrier is Jimmy Greaves. We're Harry Kane. We need to break it. There we go. 700 likes on this video, and we would be extremely appreciative. But let's crack on. The 5 performances we need to touch on. It's for me. One Navan bumper very impressively on Saturday. Now straight to the top of the champion bumper anti-post markets. What did you make of his performance? It was very hard not to be impressed. He's won on the bridle. A good thing to do at Navan as well, because it's a hard staying track. But he won very impressively. This is a good, decent bumper. I don't know about the horses he's beating behind, but some of them had decent point-to-point form in there. And as much as people will cry about this horse maybe shouldn't be favourite, well, who should be favoured ahead of it? Maybe Queen's Gamble. That's the only one really that I could think of. And you're looking at it going, well, whatever Willie Mullins throws and looks to be first string is probably going to be 3-1, 5-2 on the day. And he, at the moment, from what they've achieved, probably fills that berth. Yeah, nothing's really emerged for the champion bumper this year as a standout leading superstar. And I suppose what he did was as close to that we've seen so far maybe this season. So understandably, Cheltenham favourite, champion bumper favourite. I just have a funny feeling with the bumper this year, it's going to be won by a big price. Just one of those years. Bruno. Possibly, something like that. Allegorie De Vassy made her second start over fences, and her jumping was interesting. Yeah, it was a bit skew-whiff, certainly to start with. She was plenty keen and plenty high at her fences. Look, I think fundamentally she's a very good jumper of a fence. She showed that down in Limerick, and she showed that at times there at Thurles. She does have a little bit of a quirk to go out to her right, a little bit like Gaelic Warrior. There's just that little bit in her. Yeah. And whether that will get found out in a mare's chase against the likes of Impervious and Scarlet and Dove, maybe. She might have the most natural ability of all those 3 mares. She's certainly got more natural ability than Scarlet and Dove. But you're going to end up probably having to take a chance on her at a short price, having had just 2 starts over fences and not looked maybe completely foot perfect there on that last start. And I think she's a skimpy price given those considerations. Yeah, I would slightly disagree. I personally think she is just, like you say, has more ability than the other 2. And as long as her jumping holds up, I think she'll be too good. Fakir D'oudairies was a fortunate winner. Holton Colors was travelling like a dream. You were getting very excited under Coops. Yeah, I was indeed. Yeah, no, he was absolutely tanking into the race, and he just seems to be one of these horses. He's a little bit like Asterion Furlange, not as much of a nutter, but in the case that it just never seems to quite
go right. You know, he seems to fall when he's got a huge chance. Then he puts in the odd stinker. I think he would have won, to be honest. Fakir D'oudairies, as you made a point to me when we were watching the race, he was coming back. I don't believe he was going to beat Hoton Color from where he was. I think he'd have been a very admirable second, gone down on his shield as he often does. But he picked up the pieces, and what a wonderful horse he's been. If it wasn't for Allaho around, we'd probably be saying that he's one of the best 2.5 milers we've seen in a long time.
I completely agree. And I thought after the race you said something interesting about Galopin Des Champs, and people were very quick to crab him just beating Fakir D'oudairies, but he's a seriously good horse.
Yeah, exactly, and I just thought at the time he won the race, I think, by 12 lengths to John Durkin, and people on Twitter are there saying, oh, but he's got to still go and test himself against, you know, proper Grade 1 animals. Fakir D'oudairies won heaps of Grade 1s, he wins Grade 2s like they're running out of style, and he's a solid and very solid mid-160s horse, and runs to that rating pretty much every time as well.
Embassy Gardens is now high up in the Albert Bartlett anti-post markets and relished every single stride of the 2 mile 7 trip that he went up to. And you were impressed, not impressed? Where do you sit with him?
Yeah, look, he was very impressive. You could not be impressed the fact he's won by 35 lengths. That being said, he's beaten Kilbree Warrior. Like, I'd almost fancy myself in a straight race with Kilbree Warrior. Like, she's rated 110 for Ollie McKiernan. Got stuffed in a mare's handicap at Limerick. And the 2 Gordon Elliott horses haven't lifted a leg. They didn't travel at all, didn't seem to want to go from the outset. So I don't know what you're taking from this race from a depth perspective. My big thing with this horse, and I'm more than willing to be proven wrong, is that when under pressure about Leopardstown and Cork, he started swishing his tail. And I believe this horse has got no chance if he gets into a battle in the Albert Bartlett. And when's the last time you've seen a horse win the Bartlett on the bridle? It just doesn't happen. You have to slog it out to a certain extent. And I think something will worry him out of it. And I think, quite frankly, I understand he's a good horse. I understand he has his chance, but he is one of the most rotten prices of the whole festival. He should be at least double his price. He should be a 14, 16 to 1 shot.
What price is he?
7s.
Wouldn't be interested in taking that then.
I think there's at least 4 or 5 horses that have better profiles.
Ferns Lock was impressive in the Hunter Chase, and is he ready for the Hunter Chase this year?
I don't think so. He's a really good horse, though. He's maybe next year's horse. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes the Vaucelet route from last year, that he'll be primed around trying to run at the Punchestown. Big Hunter Chase there over 3-1. May even take in your favourite race of the calendar year here at Stratford, the 3 mile 3 race. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think he's a fantastically good-looking horse. Only 6 years of age. Billaway, he ran a perfectly respectable race. He always comes on big time for his first run as well, so I wouldn't be writing him off completely. But I'd say David Christie and Barry O'Neill, they're just going, please let us beat Billaway this year, and please let ourselves get on that Cheltenham Roll of Honour.
Now it's time to look ahead to the Dublin Racing Festival and the anti-post markets. We have anti-post markets for majority of the Grade 1s, all the Grade 1s, and the bumpers as well, but we don't have anti-post markets for the handicaps, but we will take a good look at those. We're going to go in chronological order. First race, 2 mile 6 furlong, Nathaniel Lacey, novices hurdle over 2 mile 6 furlongs. Like I said, it's a Grade 1 contest, a great race to kick things off. Hidden Valley Lake, who's at the top of the market, won't run here. He will go to Clonmel on the 16th of Feb for the Shore Hall, the race that Chris's Dream won, and Manila Indo finished second to Allaho in before going on to win the Bartlett. So slight shame that he's not turning up here, but I think Absolute Notions will carry the same colours. Where do you see this going? Because there's plenty in there that I know you like, and there's plenty in there that I've got questions over them as well.
Yeah, it's a very interesting race. I think it's a cracker, one of the best races of the 2 days. Often is as well. It usually throws up a good finish. And just in regards, I suppose, to give a little bit of context to what I was saying just a few minutes ago with Embassy Gardens, I think you could name the first 5 or 6 in the betting for this race, and I'd have them as better chances in the Bartlett than Embassy Gardens, to be honest. For me, it's like picking between 2 kids with Goodland and Sander Clegane. In an ideal world, there's a photo finish, it's a dead heat. Goodland goes to the Ballymore, Xander goes up to the Bartlett in time. I really like the 2 horses. I think if you were to really push me at this stage, I just think maybe over 2-6 Goodland may have that little bit more pace, and he's obviously won a 2-4 mile maiden hurdle at the track. I think that was one of the best, certainly. It would be in the top 3 maiden hurdles I think has been run all year. and he absolutely annihilated his rivals that day. I think he's a proper horse. Xander, I think, is going to be really good. He's going to be primed to run very well, but I do think the 3 miles of the Albert Bartlett will see Xander maybe at his best. I'm hoping that will be his peak performance of the year. You've got the likes of Absolute Notions, very good horse, maybe not quite up to it. And then there's your friend Mike. He's the enigma of this field.
He is the enigma. I actually had a positive update from the yard on American Mike. He did his first proper piece of work under Davy Russell last week, and they're extremely happy with him. They think they've got him back to his very best. He'll need to be. What we saw at Navan, he definitely had a niggle. It wasn't his best showing, and he was beaten by a horse that probably shouldn't have beaten him that day. If he comes back to his very best, he's going to take some stopping here, but the price probably reflects his chances there. Do you take the risk at 6-7 to 1, or do you just let him run and see? They are thinking Bartlett more than Ballymore, and that's before this race. So I think that's interesting. In my opinion, I think Goodland is probably the bet here. I think that what he's done on the track over hurdle so far is the standout form. I think that was very, very impressive the last day. Obviously, you've got Indiana Dream in there, who's probably going to run, could be anything. He was very impressive on his first start. Stepping Up and Trip looks like it will benefit him as well, but I'm just not sure where I sit with him having one run going into a grade 1. And the one that I just, for some reason, because Willie kept banging on about him at the start of the season, and he wasn't that impressive on his hurdling debut, but I just think he'll come on plenty for it, is Cader Parry. I just don't give up with him. I know he wasn't visually impressive, but when Willie talks about those horses glowingly, like he did with him, he's not often wrong. I just think if he was to turn up in one of these big races, I'd definitely have a squeak each way on him at a double figure price, if he is that. Moving on then to the 2 mile spring juvenile hurdle, a race that has chucked up Triumph Hurdle winners. Last year was won by Vauban, who went on to win it at the festival. Blood Destiny's probably unlikely to run. I can't imagine Willie's going to run him. So Lossiemouth is going to be odds on to win, beating probably Gala and a couple of Josephs.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the way it will go. Joseph will have something in there to give himself a little bit of a form read. Whether he chucks in a comfort zone or not, it would be good for the race if he did, but I don't see anything getting to Lossiemouth here. I think she'll be well able to confirm that form from Christmas time. As you say, I don't think Blood Destiny's going to be in there. I think we'll be getting to Cheltenham, we'll be getting to the Triumph Hurdle, and it'll be a little bit like what we had maybe a few years ago with Zanahiyr and Quilixios for Gordon, where the 2 best horses are coming from the same yard, but they haven't faced each other. Very hard to quantify the 2 form lines working together. But from what we've seen from Lossiemouth so far, I'd be awfully shocked if she gets turned over in this race, and I don't think it's going to be the deepest one at that.
No, the following race is the Irish Arkle, another grade 1. And this is tricky. I've narrowed it down. I think 5 will go to post. I think Dysart Dynamo will run with Townend. I think he'll be the pick of Townend. I think El Fabiola will be ridden by Daryl Jacob. I think Saint Roy will run.
Yep.
And then I think Bambridge, Slevin, and then Visionarian, I think, will make the 5. I reckon those 5 run. I don't see Appreciate It running. I think he'll skip the Dublin Racing Festival, maybe have one more run, but just afterwards. And I don't think Flame Bearer will run. I think Phil Dawes going to go up in Trip. So I don't think it's going to be a big field, and it's going to be dominated by Willie Mullins, Saint Roy, El Fabiolo, Dysart Dynamo. Which one is the best? Which one is their Arkle horse?
Well, that's the $1 million question, Josh. I think if you pin me down to it right now, I'd say Dysart Dynamo. I thought he was very good at Leopardstown at Christmas time. I thought he jumped well, which was the key. I know it was a bit of a nothing race in behind. I completely understand that. That being said, the horses he beat aren't any mugs by any stretch. El Fabiolo needs to brush up his jumping an awful lot, and I just have a sense that El Fabiolo may still be that little small bit immature. He's had very little racing. He was the most kind of unexposed of this lot over hurdles last year. Was a bit of a late burner to the party. Had just come from a Tramore maiden hurdle to an Aintree grade 1, and then kind of picked up a relatively egg and spoon novice hurdle Punchestown. So he may be just a little bit small bit behind Dysart Dynamo in terms of career progression. He didn't run in bumpers in Ireland either. And maybe that will be the winning and losing of it. If I was to have a bet, in the race at the very current anti-post stages, and I do stress very current, it would be Saint Wad 8-1 each way. You can get 3 places, as you say. I think it would be a 5-runner race, maybe even a 4-runner race, and you could be sitting on a 3-placer with Saint Wad, who is the Grade 1 winner. And just on that small chance that neither Dysart or El Fabiola are maybe quite as good as we think they are, you know that Saint Wad will be ridden off the pace. There will be a strong pace in the race and will be coming home strong. He'd be maybe the bet at this time, for me, at the prices.
I would, at the moment, I'd leave it alone. If you were to pin me down, Dysart Dynamo, probably just better than El Fabiola. I'll be with you there. The Irish Gold Cup comes next, and it's the return of Galopin Des Champs. This time up to 3 miles. We'll see, will he stay? It's not like he's won over 3 miles before, but we'll see if he stays over fences 3 miles. It's going to be a good race, some good horses he's got to beat in there. Probably his biggest test so far. And it's anything going to get near him?
I don't see it myself, really. That form's been well advertised, as we mentioned earlier on in the video, and this is just a really good horse, and I think if you don't want this horse to win, you're in the wrong game. He's a proper horse. He's possibly the best horse in training, and you want to see the best horse in training. Well, Constitution Hill might have something to say about that, but you know what I mean. Over fences he may well be, and I'd love him to win by 10 lengths on the Scooby.
That would be top class. I think the one thing with Galopin Des Champs is the map and the route that they've mapped out for his Gold Cup bid is perfect for him. I don't think you could design a better starting point than the John Durkan for a horse like Galopin Des Champs, because he was exuberant last year. You could get him to settle 2-4, perfect introduction to the season, and then you step up and trip, perfect timing, a nice gap, the Irish Gold Cup, and then you go to Cheltenham. Like, it's perfectly mapped out for a horse like him, and I just think he'll take all the beating. 3 mile Leopardstown handicap hurdle, tricky one, very tricky to know what's going to run, which horses are really going to be there to win. Will some of them have a Martin Pipe in mind? Will some of them have Potemps in mind? Really tricky. Is there one that stood out for you here?
No, I think there's some well-handicapped horses in here. It's just very difficult. Gordon has 7 or 8 in the race, and you don't know who's going to get the trigger pulled. You know, 3 or 4 of them are well-handicapped, but who's going to go for it? If I was to have my guess, I think Eric Bloodaxe could be a bet in this race, because I think it's the type of race that he could win. I don't see Eric Bloodaxe winning a Pertemps at Cheltenham. I think the likes of your Maxims and those types of horses, Salvador Ziggy for that matter, are more likely horses to win a Pertemps. As for, is Eric Bloodaxe not an absolute king of winning a Grade B race over here in Leopardstown? I'd have thought so. And the other horse I'm just intrigued by is Gatsby Grey. I think there's going to be a big pot in him at some stage this year. He's come back down to a mark of 138. He's a good horse. He showed that last year at times. Needs a few runs to get into his season. Just wonder whether a step up to 3 miles might suit him. He'll come off the pace for Phil Enright.
Following race is the 2 mile Sandyford Handicap Chaser. A race I think you've got a very good record in, actually, punting-wise.
Yeah, no, not too bad. Good old Camino won this race a number of years ago for BJ Coops and Paul Nolan, and I've managed to keep a decent enough record as a rule.
One in this, I quite like Mouse Morris's Get My Drift. I think that he does have one of these big pots in him. I think he's well handicapped, and I thought the run the last day was very good with something like this in mind.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Only thing I'd say with that is just watch the JP entries for this race. I was all over Fighting Fit at an anti-post stage for this race last year, and they ended up yanking him because A Wave of the Sea was in the race for Joseph and JP, and he ended up going on to win it. He beat Grange Walk, and they only ran one JP horse in there. If JP only runs one, I would back it near on whoever it was. So that would include Get My Drift if he was there. I think Grange Walk back down to the same mark as what just touched off in this race last year would have a chance. Trained by John Ryan, you're always going to get a bigger price than you should do. I'd like to think he'll be a double figure price. I can't see him out of the frame.
The final race on the Saturday is the Future Stars Bumper Grade 2 contest. Willie's got 24 entered in the race. Which one is the best of those? Because It's For Me isn't in there, and he's got a lot of horses that were very impressive on their first start or look like they could come on for a lot. Which one do you think he's going to run, and which one? Well, he'd probably run 3 or 4, but which one do you think is the best of them?
Yeah, well, I think he'll probably run even 4 or 5. I don't think he'll know himself even with some of these horses. There's no standouts whatsoever. I think a horse that may well be overpriced because people will think he's slow is Factor File. I've seen, though, that 2 mile 4 bumper has worked out very well in years gone by. And I think the Eddie O'Grady horse he beat is very smart, that Irish Panther. So he might be a bit better. And I'd say he'll be a bit sharper. He looked green and looked a bit backward on that day. Wouldn't surprise me if he ran well. I think the only thing I'd probably do in that race at this stage is I'd probably take on Facile Mode. I would certainly let that be proven to happen again. I don't think Gordon's horses performed in that race. King of Kingsfield, your horse, Cato Capone, Caldwell Potter, none of them ran a race. Like they all didn't lift a leg. Mullins' horses were a little bit disappointing. Special Cadeau might come forward for that run. He might have an each-way chance in this race as well, but I'd maybe take on Facile Mode until I saw it again.
I think they may have had him 100% to then sell him on after, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, but that's funny because I'm sure they had offers. You know, you can't have won a bumper like that because it may as well have been a listed bumper, that race going into it. And he absolutely sluiced in for Charlie Mullins. But, you know, maybe they just want to, you know, keep rolling on and run with the dream. I know it's a family-owned horse. Tom Mullins hasn't had maybe a graded horse for 4 or 5 years at this stage. He's a good trainer when he does get them, but as I say, just would like to see it happen again for me.
At the moment, I think just with the uncertainty of the Willie Mullins horses, I probably wouldn't have a bet in the race at the moment. But better days ahead for Gordon. Thought he was good the last day. Beat Chapeau de Soleil. I think if it was to be run tomorrow, I'd probably back him.
Yeah, I can see that.
Moving on to the Sunday and the 2 mile 1.5 furlong mares handicap hurdle gets things underway. I thought this was quite interesting, the entries, because I think some of the handicap marks potentially quite lenient. I thought Foxy Girl given 120 was lenient, and I thought Liberty Dance given 129 was also lenient. Is there a horse in this that's going to turn out to be, say, a mare's novice hurdle contender?
Yeah, I thought there might be, actually. I'm a big fan of Liberty Dance. I know we said that on one of the previous podcasts when we went through the Gordon Elliott mare's novice horses. And I suppose she's going to have to prove it because she's having to give Foxy Girl £9, given she beat her 4.5 lengths earlier in the season. So that'll be an interesting clash. I'd be keeping those two on side. And this has been a day I've been waiting for all year, for Bantown Girl to be running in this off 115 for Stephen Carey. Hopefully Mikey Big Stones, as I like to call him, Mikey O'Sullivan, will be on claiming another 5 off her back. I think she's got a huge chance. She'll be off a very lightweight. She'll be a double figure price. Won't see her out of the frame myself.
Foxy Girl, I think, would be my pick off 120. The next race is the 2.5 mile 125 Ladbrokes Novice Chase. At the head of the market, we've got Mighty Potter. Appreciate it in there. I don't think he'll run. James de Burley will probably be Willie Mullins' first string, and he'll probably be second favourite. You've got the likes of Gallard de Vanille, who could run in this. You've also got Gentleman's Game. Looks a really, really good race. Which one do you think will win it?
I think Mighty Potter's the most likely winner. It's interesting to see, though, there has been a lot of money for appreciated for this race. You know, I don't know whether that's just people taking no chances, just in case he was to run. I didn't see it myself. I didn't see that happening. I think Mighty Potter would take a lot of beating. That being said, I'm going to be really, really intrigued to look at Gentleman's Game in this race. Horse I like a lot. Thought he shaped very well out for this course and distance on Chasing Debut. I think he's just been made for fences, this horse. He's a huge, imposing horse. And I just really hope he's as good as I maybe think he is, which is a proper Grade 1 horse.
Do you think out of him, Jerry, Journey with Me, even the 3 mile Rob Core Novice Chases, which one do you think would probably be the best?
Hard to know, because I think we just haven't got to the ceiling of Jerry Colombe yet, even though he's still unbeaten. I don't think we've actually even seen him put in a performance that he could be capable of. He'd still probably be top of that list for me, but Gentleman's Game is a very good horse. I'd probably have him ahead of Journey with Me, definitely. Now
we've got the Dublin Chase, the over 2 miles and a furlong. This race isn't its greatest renewal, with Blue Lord 4-7. Energamine's going to run at Cheltenham on Saturday, which is going to be an unbelievable day. And then he's got the likes of So Royale in there. He's got to beat Gentleman to Me. It's not the most inspiring race.
No, not at all. It tends not to be, actually, as well. It does have a history of short price Willie Mullins favourites.
Min, Chac and Poissoir.
Yeah, I think Blue Lord's the next on that line, to be honest. I don't think he's going to have to be much in this. And but if he puts in a performance, even probably 90% of the performance he put in at Christmas, I'd say he wins.
Following race is the 2 mile 5 furlong Bulmer's Handicap Chase. Very, very competitive. I actually quite like one in this. We've got no odds for the race yet, but I think Battle Over Doyen off 142 has a big pot in him. It was only October where he finished third behind Easy Game. Ken Boy was second, and he finished a very close third. That was a grade 2. He'd just been climbing down the weights. I know the last run at Fairy House wasn't incredible, but there's surely a big pot in him.
Yeah, I'd have thought so, and the step back up to 2.5 will suit him as well. I think he's got a decent chance. The horse I quite liked in the race is actually same trainer, same owner, so I'd say only one of them will probably run. I just think Mars Harper's got a very good chance in a handicap such as this, if he was to go and run. Would they run the two against each other? I don't think they're adverse to it, Pioneer Racing. They seem to be good sports of the game. But at the same stage, I'd have thought if they really fancied one, they'd just run the one. So maybe whoever of the two of them turn up, I'd be having my money on.
The feature of the day is the Irish Champion Hurdle. Really hard to pinpoint a feature because the whole 2 days are brilliant. But the Irish Champion Hurdle is probably up there. We've got State Man, head of the market. We've got Honeysuckle, second favourite. We've got Vauban. Did he run really well? Is he going to come on for it? Lots of questions here. And it's quite shocking that Honeysuckle, the 2-time champion hurdle winner, the mare that wins this race as she likes, isn't favourite. And that's because State Man could be very good.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's a very, very hard one to know. Honeysuckle probably should be favourite based off what she's achieved and what she's done in this race before, as you mentioned. But I just have a feeling that State Man is very, very good.
How good?
Very good.
Very good.
And I think if we were here in a very normal champion hurdle year, I think we'd be ranting and raving about this horse, thinking he was the best thing since sliced bread. Unfortunately, he's got Constitution Hill to face, and I don't think it's not prudent to say there's any horse is going to beat Constitution Hill at the moment, unless he was to fluff his lines. But I think State Man takes all the beating in this race. I don't see the angle in the slightest of Vauban reversing the form. That's something I just don't see it. I can understand if he gets beat by Honeysuckle, Honeysuckle kind of turns back the clocks. I could understand that happening because she is a wonderful mare. She gets the £7, and it'd be great to see. It's probably the better result for racing. But at the same stage, I think State Man winning and potentially dethroning Honeysuckle could also be good for Irish racing. That the old queen is going out on her sword, and you'd love to see her give State Man a huge race and maybe be passing that baton on to the new king of 2 mile hurdling in Ireland. I'm
looking forward to probably seeing State Man get the job done.
You're sitting on the fence there, Josh. People want to know. I've gone full hog there, and you're sitting on your lovely big chair, not giving the people a proper. What do you think? If I was to pin you to that wall right now, who wins?
I think State Man will win. I think Honeysuckle will be retired.
That is a very interesting call. But now, because I've done that, the audience have got their answer.
The next race is the 2 mile Grade 1 novice hurdle. You've got Facile Vega in there. He's just going to go and win.
I'd like to have thought so, yes. And in the process, he might silence a few of the do-mongers of the game out there.
Yeah, I think Willie mentioned at the start of the season that he's just going to get better and better and better through the season, and I expect him to win and win comfortably. The penultimate race is the 2 mile Liffey handicap hurdle, which I put Call Me Lyrene up at a massive price last year, hoping to do something similar. And there is one with a very similar profile, and that's the Tide Turns. It was a smart juvenile last year, actually ran in the Grade 1 behind Vauban. Has definitely gone backwards since, but I think they're just eyeing up a big handicap with him. He could be one of interest, because usually if horses are just going backwards, they're not going forwards, Gordon gets rid of them. He's kept him, and I do think there's definitely a big one there. But the race, you could go through it, and there's 3 or 4 horses with nice profiles.
Yeah, certainly. And I don't disagree with that call on the Tide Turns. I do believe at some stage they'll point and shoot with that horse, and he'll go in one of these big races. I think one that's obviously of top consideration has to be this Filey Bay for Emmett Mullins, now purchased by JP McManus. I've sensed that if he's going to run at the Cheltenham Festival, he's going to have to go close in this race. He's only off 131, and even if he was to get a bit of British tax of £4 or £5, you know, you're just only scrimping into the back of a Coral Cup or a County Hurdle doing that. So I think he'd go very, very close in this. I suspect he'll be well up there in the market, given connections, and especially if they feel it's a going day, he'll probably go off he could go off a 5-2, 3-1 favourite. But I mean,
if it's a going day, he could go off 5-4.
Yeah, well, this is it. You know, like, this is a hard thing. But I know also a horse that I think is going to be a bigger price and likely to run a solid race. Usually these are 5-6 place races. Has to be Man of Work in this. A horse I like a lot. He ran well at Fairyhouse in a similar race by Merlin Giant, went fourth the last day, when the ground would have probably gone against him that day as well. I think a bit of nicer ground suits this horse. Off 129. I'd be very disappointed if he wasn't in the first 5.
And the final race is the 2 mile Mares Bumper, another Grade 2 contest. I like 2 here. I think Fancy Girl clearly is the nice Willie Mullins sexy profile, won impressively on her first day. I think that form is good as well. But I do think Lily de Burley for the Crawfords, who won this race last year, interesting she goes back as a 7-year-old. I think it'll be between one of those two.
Yeah, I can't look behind that, to be fair. Lily de Burley has a very good chance. She does have to carry the penalty, but I think she could well be able to do so. Interesting to see whether John McConnell runs both. Reflection was very impressed with her down at Limerick at Christmas time, given a canny ride from young Aaron Harvey, and if he kept the ride, she might have a decent chance at maybe an each way price. There we go. We do hope you've enjoyed this Ante post look ahead to the Dublin Racing Festival. Do let us know horses that you fancy down below for the extremely good 2-day meeting. And also, if we can hit 700 likes on this video, that would be brilliant. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon.